Hey guys, welcome in Stinkin Truth Podcast. Mark Schlereth alongside Mike Evans. Well, I guess we're not alongside. We're together, but we're not actually together. I miss your Musk. I really do. But anyhow, thanks for everybody for listening. We appreciate it. I'm in New York. Mike in Denver, Colorado. Eventually, they're going to send me a mic, and eventually this is it's gonna look different because I sound a little hollow, but you'll get over it. So, Mike, how are you, buddy?
Hey, nobody is paying attention to what you sound like because all they're looking at are those eyes.
Yeah. Oh,
You
yeah.
know?
Gorgeous.
Well, we've
Gorgeous.
got a full slate of week one games to talk about and absorb and process. Let's just start out by making it easy. Who had the most impressive performance of the weekend for you? What team?
Well, I mean, obviously, there's a lot of impressive performances. I'll start with last night's game in San Francisco. That was a bludgeoning. And let's face it, we thought, hey, some weapons. Mike Williams for the Jets is hurt. He's on a pitch count. We know that Garrett Wilson's probably going to be the go-to guy for Rodgers. Rodgers back, Breece Hall. Like, they should be really dynamic on the offensive side of the ball. But when they're getting their kind of stuff together offensively, this defense is just going to kick ass and take names. It's the best defense in the history of football. And they got their neck shortened. I mean, it was an ass whooping of biblical proportions. The Niners just put it on the Jets. Their run game, their consistency in the run game. Jordan Mason, just 147 yards and a TD as a backup running back, just ran through him like shit through a goose. So it was impressive. And the way they run the football, all the play action stuff that comes off of that with Kyle Shanahan, the wide open guys. And what happens when you run the ball like that? One, you're constantly defending the run, right? And there's always this kind of theory about pass rushing. You earn the right to rush the passer by how well you defend the run. Man, they just got bludgeoned. They had 8 carries for 60 some odd yards just between the tackles. Forget about all the outside stuff. They were averaging almost 6.5 yards a carry right between the defensive tackles, which is supposed to be the strength of the New York Jets defense. So they put it on them, all the play action stuff off of that. And ultimately, it does two things. One, you got to defend the run. Then when you run that play action, you're looking. You're like, oh, shoot, pass rush time. You're already late doing it. And then the other thing it does is it just exhausts you to the point where you don't have the energy to rush the passer once you do get a legitimate opportunity. But I just thought it was, there's a reason the San Francisco 49ers keep representing the NFC in the Super Bowl. They're that good. They are really outstanding.
And there's a reason that as you travel around the NFL talking to coaches, how they pretty much all to a man say, yeah, we study the 49ers run game. Their system, their run game is a living, breathing thing. And when you see Christian McCaffrey missing a game and there's Jordan Mason stepping in and going for $140, I mean, that only adds to the fuel, the legend of just how unique this San Francisco 49er run game, I guess really the Kyle Shanahan, Mike Shanahan run game really is.
Yeah, it really is. And let me just give you kind of an example, like a little bit of football breakdown here. So let's say you're running just an 18 handoff, right? A wide zone to the right-hand side. So all the different ways you can block the edge of that play, meaning the defensive end. So call it the defensive end, and then whoever becomes the, whether it's the Sam linebacker or safety or whatever kind of configuration you have. So at one point you've got your let's say it's your tackle and your tight end, right? And they're running this boom like this, right? So it's double team, which they call tray, from that defensive end to that backer, okay? The next time it's 2 tight ends, right? So now all of a sudden it's 2 tight ends running that quad block, we call that. So now it's quad, those 2 tight ends up to the backer. The next thing you know, you've got 1 tight end, the tackle does something else, and here comes the fullback from across the formation. Then the fullback and the tight end run that block, right? The next thing, the tight end arc releases. Okay, so the tight end arc releases, bam, he leaves, and here comes the fullback across the formation, bam, and he hits that defensive end. So that arc release just carries up the second level, and now you're creating a different angle. So I just explained, and there's a bunch more, but I just explained about 4 different ways to block that defensive end frontside linebacker safety combination. Every other guy, 9 other guys are doing the exact same play on 18 handoff 100% of the time. But just that defensive end combination, that defensive end now has seen 4 or 5 different ways that he is getting blocked. Every one of those looks like a different blocking scheme. Every one of those looks like a different play to that guy. And so they put your head on a swivel. And now all of a sudden your head's on a swivel. And guess what? You finally get an opportunity to actually rush the passer, and you know what you're doing. You're like this. Where are they coming from?
Right.
Who's going to get me? Right? And then you're a half second or a second behind before you start rushing the passer. And at that point, you're worthless. You're no good. Like, you can't rush the passer like that. So it's just amazing. And you mentioned all the different coaches I talked to. Man, this wasn't this offseason. It was an offseason ago. I think I talked to 12 different either O-line coaches or run game coordinators, or, you know, a lot of O-line coaches are the run game coordinators. Every single one of them, without exception, every single one said the same thing. Man, I spent a lot of time studying the San Francisco run game, the 49er run game. I mean, it's pretty impressive, man. It's pretty impressive what they do. That was a bludgeoning. Then the game I called, you asked me for impressive. I'm gonna tell you something. Now, it was against the Carolina Panthers.
Right.
The Carolina Panthers might not really be an NFL team roster-wise. Like, they picked up like 7 guys off everybody else's scrap heap, right? And like they had, I think there were 7 different guys defensively, offensively, that I believe it was either 5 or 6 or 7, somewhere in that category. They picked up off of somebody else's roster who had been cut. So they had been cut August, say, 22nd, right? Or whatever it was, whatever the final cutdown day was. They got cut after the 3rd preseason game, and they're all starting for the Carolina Panthers. So there's a lot of work going on to build that roster to where it needs to be. But the NFC South, which you know is going to be my division, it'll be really interesting to see the New Orleans Saints take on the Cowboys this weekend. And I do believe Tom Brady will be calling. It's a Cowboys game, so of course Tom Brady's going to be calling it. I mean, I don't know. Maybe you've heard he's doing games for Fox. Have you heard that?
Yeah. Then I also heard they didn't really open to the greatest of reviews either.
Well, he's doing games. I cannot comment on. I'm sure he was outstanding, and everybody who didn't give him a good review is a douchebag. But
good company, man. Good company response. Well done.
But anyhow, I don't know if you've heard that Tom Brady's doing games at Fox, but I've heard it. Anyhow, he's doing that. Well, it's a Cowboys game, so he's doing that. They play the Saints. I'm going to tell you right now, I am not going to be shocked at all when the Saints beat the Cowboys. I think it's in Dallas.
Yeah.
I won't be shocked at all. Clint Kubiak took over that offense, and a couple things. One, Alvin Kamara is a perfect fit for what they're trying to do in the run game / screen game, passing game. And that is the offense that Derek Carr is most familiar with because he ran that with John Gruden. The difference is John Gruden had a check for everything, right? John Gruden put it all on Derek Carr. Derek Carr has got a lot. This offense has got a lot with guys that we know, like Clint Kubiak. We were really familiar with his father, Gary Kubiak. But Rick Dennison is there as well. And Rick, I was talking to Rick before the game. Rick is their kind of quote-unquote run game, top offensive assistant / run game aficionado. And he said, Stink, we got so many tank plays in, like just call it and run it. So we take that pressure off the quarterback to make sure that, hey, if we're in this and they do this, we got to get to this. No. This play is good against everything. Call it, run it. Let's get off the ball. Let's smash some guys in the teeth. And it's one thing that drives me crazy, especially with the younger generation of coaches in today's game. I hear it all the time, Mike, every week. Oh, we want to get into a premium play here. This is going to be a premium play. So what that means is, hey, if we get a certain look, we'll keep it on. But if we get a look that we don't like, we're going to check to this or check to that. And the problem with that is you're always playing on your freaking heels. Like, I just like to line up and try to actually, like, shorten somebody's neck, right? Just come off the ball and see if you can smash somebody. And when you have the call it and run it system or the tank play system, one, it lets you come off the ball, hunting, and it lets that quarterback take a breather right there. I don't have to think about anything. Right. I'm going, we're running, 19 handoff force? We're good. Against everything, we're good. Blue 80, son. Boom, had the ball out there. So Derek is in that system. He really knows that system. He was great last weekend. They've got a lot of weapons on the offensive side of the ball. Taysom Hill is a problem. Let me tell you about Taysom Hill really quick. Guy's 34 years old, which you would never believe. He's like this. There was an article. They have 10 different categories of kind of level of strength for different things, like strength and strength and physicality and explosiveness. So they have 10 different categories their strength coaches grade people on. He was a top 10 in every category except one, and in that one he was top 15, I think, on the team. Like, he's a freak show, and he played lead fullback, where he's leading on a run play. Then he's lined up at tailback, and then he's lined up at tight end. Then he's lined up at slot receiver. Then he's lined up at quarterback. Like, he plays every position on the football field, and he's like a real problem. It's just they're a lot better than I think people think they are, and they're going to contend. I thought Atlanta was going to run away with the NFC South. The New Orleans Saints, after watching them, and I know it was against Carolina Panthers, they're going to give people problems.
Well, we'll see if it happens against Dallas. You're calling the possibility of a big upset. Cowboys, they finally got it done. They got the deal done with Dak, highest paid player in NFL history, after all the sort of just kind of waiting. We're trying to read what Jerry Jones was all about. What kind of message was he trying to send? But he eventually gets the deals done with Dak, CeeDee Lamb. So what are we supposed to learn from the way that Jerry Jones handled this offseason and all these negotiations? What was the message sent, and was it received?
Yeah, I think the message sent was I'm going to wait around and pay my guys the most money I can possibly pay them instead of getting them done early, because it's good for the organization. We're worth 5 point whatever billion, maybe $6 billion. And our name's in the news all the time, and a lot of it's because of me, and that's actually good for business.
You think that's what it was? You think that's what it was?
I don't why do you wait? You knew you were going to get CeeDee Lamb signed, right? And you knew he wanted more money than every other receiver not named Justin Jefferson. So he didn't get the total value of the contract, the year-over-year value of the contract, but he got the highest signing bonus of any wide receiver. Then Dak, the guaranteed money, Dak went $1 million over Deshaun Watson. So, it really becomes, it's not about the players. It becomes a pissing match about the agents. Like, the agents are trying to obviously jump over the top of the glass guy, the biggest contract ever signed. So every time somebody signs a contract, it's got to be more money than the last guy who signed a contract. And so it's really a big pissing contest between all the agents. But, I don't know if it's the Dallas Cowboys shuffling the feet. I don't know if it's if it's Dak Prescott or CeeDee Lamb. But eventually, you're going to get there. You've got to pay them more than the last guy. I just don't understand what takes it. Why do you wait? Why do you shuffle your feet? I mean, your guess is as good as mine. I think my theory about Jerry Jones just wanting it in the news as long as possible is as solid as any theory anybody could come up with. Why else? Why else do you not just go, okay, you want what? $1 million more than the Dak Prescott guarantee, or excuse me, than the Deshaun Watson guarantee? Okay. But how hard is that to figure out? I don't know.
Well, now that they're whole again, right? So you look at the Cowboys. Is this the year? I mean, they got the pieces in place. The guys are paid.
Yeah.
Is this? Although you still got the lame duck coach.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, let me tell you, offensively, Dak Prescott was really good. I mean, his numbers weren't great, but they were really good. I think the biggest thing was watching him, had a couple throwaways, took a couple of sacks that he was just like, oh, no, live to fight another day. It was almost like the Peyton Manning self-sack.
Right.
He was judicious with the football, and they did have was it a defensive touchdown or a special teams touchdown? But 33 points. So against the Cleveland Browns defense, that's supposed to be maybe the top defense. I think they were the top defense in the game last year. So, I mean, it's an impressive performance. And Micah Parsons was a one-man wrecking crew. He was great. And speaking of one-man wrecking crews, Deshaun Watson. Boy, they can't, and you can't. Do you see the cap? Like next year, his dead cap money would be like $172 million. Like, do you have to sign him to an extension? Like maybe a 5-year extension just to spread out the money to cut him? Like that dude is done. He's spent. And by the way, now there's another lawsuit against him.
What happened? I get the fact that he had the off-field issues. We know all about them. But there have been plenty of athletes that have had off-field issues, that have got into trouble, but it hasn't changed fundamentally who they are as performers. This guy has just, as a player, fallen off the map. How do you explain it?
Do all the allegations, do all the lawsuits, do all the settlements, do all these things, do they weigh so heavy on you that you can no longer go out and perform? I've said this many times, Mike. I am not. I'm somewhat of a mental midget when it comes to living, like how things affect me. I always joke around that I could have never played quarterback or corner, and it wasn't because I wasn't talented enough. It's because if I threw a pick, I'd be done.
Toast.
It'd be over for me.
Yep.
Like I could not mentally. I would be like a basket case. And even when I made a mistake on a football field, if I got my ass kicked physically, or more importantly, if I made a mental mistake where I wasn't where I was supposed to be, or I did something that was stupid that cost me a pressure or whatever. I always say as a player, I always want to know where I can lose, right? Because, okay, where's my help? I can lose over here because I've got late help and, we'll bail out and we'll be okay on this play. But if I got beat to a side that I couldn't lose on and I lost, dude, I'd be worthless for another 3 plays. I'd be like so mad at myself. And I don't know, maybe he has some of that in him, that he looks at his life and he looks at the mistakes he's made, and maybe it doesn't seem like he's got a conscience, but maybe he does. I don't know. I mean, but he, like, dude, he's done. He's awful. He was awful in that game. I mean, I went through every throw he made in that game, and now he had a couple of drops. There were a couple of drops, but dude, the level of errant throws that he had, it was alarming. I mean, like, he had on deep balls, he had more balls. I think we put a graphic up on Breakfast Ball on my new show in New York, where he had more balls that sailed 6 yards over the head of receivers out of bounds than he had catchable, even close to being catchable targets. I mean, it was, I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was awful, awful.
Speaking of awful, how awful has it gotten in New York that fans are just like waiting outside to pounce on Daniel Jones? I wouldn't be surprised. You're calling Giants Washington this weekend.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if bus companies charter buses full of Giant fans just to drive down there to boo this guy. I mean, it's bad.
Dude, you know, we talked about, I could see them being just outside, like when the Giants buses pull in, boo, you know, just all over Daniel Jones. Yeah, you're right, 100%, man. It is horrible. He was bad again. Incredible, the stat that was floating around yesterday. Since he signed that $160 million contract, he has got more pick sixes thrown than he has touchdown passes thrown.
Astounding.
Like 3 pick sixes versus 2 touchdown passes. It has been, and obviously he's got 7 games, right? But 7 games, he's thrown 2 touchdowns and 3 pick sixes in 7 games started. It does not look good, Mike. You know, I said before the season on this podcast, on TV shows, on everywhere I've been, that I gave him 6 weeks before they started the Drew Lock era.
Mm-hmm.
And I may have I'll take the under on that right now. They're so bad that the Giants came out and said, Daniel Jones is our starter this week. like that. I mean, and you know what? I'll go back to the 49ers. Like how you operate your business. And the 49ers went from 12-3 to draft Trey Lance. And they gave up 3 first-rounders to get that done. It took them an ankle injury and about 3 or 4 starts before they said to themselves, yeah, he's not good.
Mm-hmm.
And we no longer are going to use him. Now, part of that was lucking into, to Brock Purdy being awesome, right? But they did the scouting and they did decide to draft him as opposed to let him hit the free agent market, an undrafted free agent where he could have picked anywhere to go to. They had the wherewithal to go, we've evaluated this kid, we really like him, we're going to draft him in the 7th round, Mr. Irrelevant. They took him, and the rest is history. But the value of ripping off the Band-Aid, like to say, instead of kicking the can down the road and going, well, maybe he'll work out, maybe he'll be okay, maybe if he, maybe if he gets struck by lightning, it'll be like one of them Freaky Friday things where all of a sudden he turns into, hey, we swapped. You're the wife, I'm the husband. Woo, whatever it is. Like that, it's not going to happen. We're in year 6. And, and he's still walking around in a diaper. What are we going to do? It's not good. Oh, wait, I'm calling the game this weekend. Pretend I didn't say that.
Hey, you got to be honest. I mean, it's been bad. It's just been bad.
All right. And they had a chance to go in this draft class with 6 quarterbacks taking the top 12 picks.
Yep.
And they decided that Daniel Jones is their guy, and we're going to go after, Malik Neighbors. What was Gorman Pyle's real name? Was it Jim Neighbors?
Jim Neighbors. Yeah, that's too old a reference.
Well, I'm just saying Malik Neighbors. You got Jim Neighbors.
No relationship. No, I
know.
None.
Yeah, it's not good, Mike.
No, it's not good.
It's not good.
Now, you mentioned you got Washington this week. Jaden Daniels, boy, did we get? I think. Well, I didn't, because I was trying to tell you all last week when we were talking about Bo Nix that, hey, slow your roll a little bit on all this Bo Nix hysteria coming out of preseason.
You shut your mouth, Mike Evans. You shut your mouth.
Well, you're going to have to admit right here in front of everybody that I was right and you were wrong, because I tried to tell you I have too much respect for how hard it is to play quarterback in this league. Also, I know that Bill Belichick's stock at the end of it there in New England, but the dude still has forgotten more about defensive football than we'll ever know. And here's a guy who was steadfast in saying, hey, whatever you're seeing from Bo Nix, Jaden Daniels, Caleb Williams in the preseason, it's vanilla. Don't put too much stock in it. It's going to entirely change once they get into the regular season. And boy, did we see that on display for these 3 rookie quarterbacks. They all struggled.
They did struggle. I will say, the difference, between Jaden Daniels, Bo Nix, and Caleb Williams was Bo Nix had not one guy make a play. I mean, it was like it wasn't nearly as bad as it looked on the television copy when you went to the coach's film. And we heard Sean Payton come out post game, after they looked at the film, and basically called his team to the carpet and said, our guys got to make some plays. I mean, yeah, I'm going to give credit where credit's due, okay? Instead of just berating the Broncos, which, I did on our radio show, I'm going to give credit to the Seahawks. Mike McDonald, head coach of the Seahawks, defensive, coordinator turned head coach. That might have been the best tackling game I've ever watched. Like there was not one broken tackle. There were so many times when Sean Payton called a play where he had a back, tight end, wide receiver, one-on-one in the open field with a defender. And I don't think the Broncos got 1 yard after catch.
Nope.
I mean, it was unreal. The amount of suckitude that was the Broncos offensive players. And so I'm going to credit the Seahawks. They were exceptional on the defensive side of the ball. The way they rallied, the way they tackled. And I've said this for years, for decades. If all you do in the NFL is tackle well, you're going to have a good defense. And I'm telling you what, there was literally not one missed tackle in that game. It was, Mike, it was just like, what do you do? What do you do? To the point where the quarterback, who's a rookie, got frustrated and started forcing some balls downfield and ended up throwing a couple of bad, he should have probably had 4 or 5 picks in that game. So anyhow, back to the drawing board. And, I try to give the Broncos a lot of credit for saying, hey man, it's not as bad. The talent's not as bad as people nationally, pretend that it is. Right. And maybe it's just that, you just don't know the names yet. Well, if week 1's any indicator, I was wrong. Because they made not one play in the open field. They had plenty of opportunity and they couldn't break a tackle. And that's bad football.
Which makes me think it's more of that than, I mean, I get what you're saying. You're talking to Seattle fans right now. You're giving Seattle props. I get it, but you're talking about first game of the NFL season. You don't hit at all during the offseason. You don't play your starters that much in the preseason. And to think that you're going to come out and be in midseason, even playoff form when it comes to tackling, maybe, but more than likely you ran up against offensive players that really aren't difference makers. The Broncos will host Pittsburgh this week. By the way, TJ Watt, I mean, we're football fans, right? We think about offensive guys that wreck games. I mean, you couldn't take your eyes off watching TJ Watt play defense the other day. The dude just wrecked the game, wrecked it.
Mm-hmm. That's what he does. And with those guys, it's funny, with those guys that have that kind of movement skill and that kind of just play with that kind of ferocity. You have to start to game plan, like, how are we going to take care of this guy? And one of the things that that I used to do when we were players, or when I was a player, what my teams used to do is we would run directly at those guys.
Yep.
Try to slow those guys down, and bottom line, make them play flat-footed.
Yep.
Make them defend that area, right? Don't let them use their athleticism to, stab a guy and pass rush him and get over the top and slide underneath them. Just make them be stationary and take away the advantage of side-to-side movement that they have. That athleticism, I want to make a guy keep his feet in one place. And
we'll get Mark back here in a second. Hold, fire, go.
Okay. But you're right. He is, dude's an absolute freak show. Just an absolute freak show athlete.
Can he play quarterback? Because Pittsburgh right now, what do? We here in Denver are just begging to have Russell Wilson play, just because the storyline is just too perfect to have Russ, start the game. He has to play the game, but do you feel like we'll see Russ or Justin Fields led him to a road win in Atlanta, a team that you were talking about as being perhaps a dark horse NFC championship team? That has to count for something. So how does that affect Mike Tomlin's decision for week 2?
Well, I think, one, obviously Russ had the calf injury, couldn't go week 1. They got a victory with Justin Fields. The report I just read just before we came on today is that right now they're leaning toward Justin Fields, in practice this week. You got a victory, and they're going to be a problem with, Justin Fields is a problem with running the ball and all the quarterback design run and all that kind of stuff. And so, my thought process on that is, you 1-0 with the guy, keep him.
Yep.
Keep him there. Now, if he struggles, and you want to go back to Russ, fine, because it's easier to go to Russ if Russ struggles or they don't play really well and you want to go back to Justin Fields. It's okay. Hey, he won the starting job out of camp. He got hurt. We gave it to you. We're going to go back to him. Like, you can justify that a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Justin would just be fine coming back in after, if Russ doesn't perform. But I think right now you keep I don't know if it's a hot hand, but you keep the hand, that just helped you deal in a win. So I think that's the way you have to go.
All right. Plenty of great storylines. We only scratched the surface. More to get to. We'll do that a little bit later on in the week. Moneymaker picks. Strong start for me. I'm off to an early lead.
Strong start. You got a half game. You got a half game lead. You're 2-1. I'm 1-1-1.
Hey.
I always get a tie early. Have you ever noticed that?
You do get ties early. Yeah. What is that? What is with that?
I guess I like kissing sisters.
Yeah, there you go. But hey, right now it's only week 1, but I'm going to take it, baby. Scoreboard.
You ain't taking squat.
Scoreboard, baby.
All right. Hey, for everybody involved in the Stinkin podcast, I remember we'll break down some of that Saint stuff. I'll bring my boards in next or at the end of this week as we do another podcast and kind of do some of that as well. We'll have our moneymaker picks, the whole 9 yards. Hey, for myself and for Mike, man, we appreciate you guys. Please share, download, do whatever it is you do, subscribe and all that kind of stuff. Thank you so much for watching. We'll be back with you guys next week.